Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News. This is the World War III report. I got William on the phone, and to start off with, uh, havoc and world leaders are just surprised at what has happened in Lebanon. And what we're talking about is thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies, phones have been exploding. Now, uh, what I've been able to find out, and I got a good report tonight for it. Um, Israel really hasn't came forward and said yes, they did. Um, this is what they did, but there's a lot of info that's coming out of Israel, Lebanon, and also from Hezbollah. Um, uh, it seemed like thousands of pagers to start off with by the Iranian-backed terrorist organization Kisla suddenly exploded, leaving terrorists dead and thousands more wounded. They said up to about 3,000 people injured. Um, and they say it's just unreal. This was carried out a Tuesday going into today, indicating that the explosives were placed inside pagers um, at a point manufacturer in Budapest, Romania, where Taiwanese company named Gold Apollo had issued a license to the local firm named BAC. The manufacturers its products. Meanwhile, all these explosions in Damascus revealed a failed plot by Kasala to assassinate the former Israeli security officials elsewhere. Um, the senior jihad who was in charge of the rocket attacks into Israel that were launched from Rafah and the southern Gaza Strip has been eliminated, and the final proof emerged that Hamas leader Yor is not interested in a ceasefire deal. That would that he would include the release of the Israel hostages. Hamas and other terrorist organizations are also extreme pressure from the IDF in Judea and Samaria. Um, so, um,
Ellie?
yeah,
So Judea and Samaria is the West Bank, in case anybody's curious.
yeah, and what it was is Kessler, they added details, including the fact that explosives were implemented into the pagers and that were manufactured in Taiwan before shipped to Lebanon, but that's not true. Taiwan has come forward and said no. Uh, the Hezbollah pagers that exploded were made in Hungary. Um, and so they said they've had nothing to do with this. Um, so there, it's been very suspicious, and not very much info is coming out of Israel. Now, the Mossad,
They were purchased out of New York from a shell company um, through this other manufacturer. So there's that part, but the United States wasn't aware of it.
right, and then Mossad intercepted a Hezbollah pager shipment loaded with them explosives. Um, the military tactics, they say, far beyond initial impact. A sudden explosion of Hezbollah pagers is one such. Um, like they said, it was lots of terrorist pagers exploded. That's what the intention was, according to what's coming out of the local media in Lebanon. They said 11 people were killed. They said it could be up to 5,000 injured by the time this is done. The Apollo company in Taiwan were sabotaged before arriving to Lebanon, they said. And most of the devices were from AP924 model, but the shipment also included three other models. So they're having to check all of the electronics. Now, if everybody remembers, um, one of Iran's high officials was killed by his laptop exploding. So, I thought back to that and I said, somebody's been working on this for a very long time for these pagers and these walkie talkies and phones now. And now like I said, Israel has not claimed responsibilities for the pagers, but Hezbollah, in retaliation, they're talking phones and walkie-talkies. Um, uh,
So after the pagers exploded, a little later that day, um, Hezbollah went to use their walkie-talkies, and they exploded as well.
yeah. So,
So they've got two different manufacturers that
yeah.
have nothing to do with each other.
Um, and
The reason, Ellie, the reason they went to using pagers and the walkie-talkies was because they feared that their leadership was being targeted by people using cell phones, by Israeli intelligence using drones and listening gear. And so to get around that, they imported the pagers and started using walkie-talkies, and that only allowed them to be more easily targeted. They didn't really think that out.
yeah, but I don't think none of it was really thought out because they were saying even civilians were hurt. They just didn't. It wasn't just the terrorists. I mean, granted, they said they did take out quite a few terrorists, but there's too many innocent people that could have got a hold of this. And my first thought when I heard that Israel was a part of this, I thought, you know, this is wrong. There's other ways to go about this. They don't. They can drones for one. And I was like, man, this just isn't good. This isn't good. But this war is moving into a new direction to where they're trying to go after individuals, um, and not just blow up certain cities or um, villages or, um, I don't know. Help me out here, William.
So
Um,
they're trying to limit collateral damage to those individuals that are in the immediate vicinity of Hezbollah troops, and that was accomplished by using these pagers and walkie-talkies. If you were just a few feet away, you were pretty safe, right? Instead of the next house nearby or a mile down the road getting wiped out by some explosion. It's just a few feet. So in that respect, it was very targeted and had the least amount of collateral damage. And keep in mind what we've said in the past, that war is being absolutely ruthless. And this was that. This was ruthless.
it sure is. And I'm pretty sure over the next few days, we're going to hear more info coming out of not only Israel, but Lebanon and even Iran. But, we can't really trust what terrorists say. So be careful when you listen to reports, folks, because
2 weeks ago,
we have to really wait for all the info to come out to kind of decide what happened.
We tend to believe that it is Israel because a couple weeks ago, Section 8200, the military intelligence arm of the Israeli military, was struck by rockets, and they lost a number of officers were KIA. And so military intelligence, possibly Mossad, they stepped up their game. Likely, we don't know for sure, but like Ellie says, we're likely to find out here in the future.
Yeah, it's just like these current Trump assassinations. We're still getting new reports every single day, and it has to be investigated, it has to be looked at. World leaders are also looking at the United States and the UK for being maybe part of this. Now, both have said no, but we really don't know until it's investigated. And I sure hope that it's not all covered up. And a lot of this sounds like the Mossad, something the Mossad would do. Um, you,
If from William's evil side, if I were Mossad, which I'm not, But if I were and I put myself in their place, I'd do it.
And it's war. It's war. This is a new phase.
Right.
And like I said, they're trying to do the least amount of damage, and they're trying to target certain terrorists and terrorist groups. And that's, I think, what it was meant for. But in return, you know, Israel has got to look at the repercussion of what Hezbollah will do next. And so it just ramps up, and there's going to be no ceasefire. I don't even think they're even going to swap um, hostages at this point now for a very long time, or even have talks on it. Uh, so, top, what really got me was one of the first things I seen today was a top Russian official landed in Iran over alleged nuclear deal. And this is happening. We have China working nuclear deals. We have North Korea. We have Iran. And Russia is, there was another report that Russia wants to increase its army and its military to the same size as China. So it makes sense that now they're starting to look at nuclear deals and being able to restock, as they claim, we're moving closer to war. Now, there was a Pentagon, the head of the Pentagon came out. William, I don't know if you've seen this, and he was saying we're close. We're close to war with China, or the China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran coalition. That it's a good possibility that something will strike up and right around Taiwan, or even at the Philippines, a smaller country. Did you see that, his report, William?
Yeah, we've been aware of that for a little while.
I mean, we've been saying it, but you know,
becoming more bellicose and ramming ships and things like that, they've gone from talk to action. And then the next thing to happen is things that have projectiles involved, right?
Yeah.
And once that happens, all bets are off.
Yeah, and I was, you know, it struck me odd because I happened to catch it in an article, and I thought, really, the top Pentagon guy came out. So I went and listened to him, and I said, oh, this isn't good. We're getting close. And he says it's not imminent, but
the Pentagon was also upset about what was going on with respect to the English Prime Minister and Anthony Blinken. There's a whole story behind that. We'll talk about that in a minute, but that got involved in it too. So we'll just go on with yours, Ellie, for now.
And then, yeah, I just have little bits through here, and then we got lots of stuff still coming up. China hits 9 U.S. firms with property freeze over weapon sales to Taiwan. So now China is going to start freezing assets, or not doing business, or even delivering some of their goods to 9 U.S. firms, due to the fact that they are selling weapons to China, or to Taiwan, or giving them. And so Taiwan is now, says it doesn't matter. The United States seems to be ignoring the threats. And this was after the guy came out, William, is when China stepped forward and said, no, we're going to start freezing. We're going to start freezing. We're not going to do business with certain U.S. firms now. I don't know if it would hurt us at all. But let me see. Let me see if it's got some of the names. Sierra Nevada Corporation, Stick Rudder Enterprises. They said not only that, but S3 Aerospace, TCOM, Tex Or, Act One Federation, and some of these I haven't even never heard of. These are organizations and individuals within China are prohibited to engaging in transactions with these firms. So I believe the way I read this was some of the ones in the United States are going to be froze out. They're not going to do business with them. But also, a lot of the companies that the United States has in China are no longer going to be, uh, they're going to freeze them. And more than likely, they're not even going to let them do business in China.
China was getting some of our AI chips through secondary sources in Europe and getting around the arms export ban to China. China's upset with that. China's upset with some other things. China's upset with the Philippines getting past their 9-dash line, and so they're using this all as a pretext to stop shipments to subcontractors of armaments producers in the United States. Now, having said that, all I can say is thank God. At least they're not getting that stuff from China anymore. Seriously.
Yeah. And as this,
we don't need any of our arms being manufactured in any shape, any type, shape, or form from communist China. Thank you.
yeah. You know, the other thing is, you know, talking about freezing stuff out, and as this administration refuses to do oil in our country, and for the longest time we heard Venezuela, and then all of a sudden I was like, no, what's going on? Where did they go? So I did today. I just got to thinking about it because Congress was even explaining to some of the transportation industry that, and with the Biden administration, that, you know, they're saying that they can let the coal plants go until 2048 before there's going to be a real concern. So they were questioning them on why couldn't they just let it go for a few more years and find ways with cleaner coal. And they were like, no, we're just going to stick to what we're doing. And they asked, okay, if are you, then it was mentioned about us getting oil from Venezuela. And she said, no, that ended, I think it was like 3 months ago. And so
when they had the election in Venezuela, Maduro stole the election. But news sources reported on it in the United States that Maduro had stolen the election. But Maduro thinks Biden caused that to happen, and so he's angry at Biden. So
that could make sense why that they aren't doing the oil there. But guess what? Come to find out, they had went to Turkey, and they have been doing it through Turkey. And the Turkish refinery has generated an estimated 834 million in revenues. Now, not only that, but then we found out that we bought 2 billion from Russia this year alone for oil through sanction workarounds.
Through secondary markets. Not directly from Russia, but through secondary markets.
Yeah, and some of it's through the 3 Turkish refineries.
On the ocean, transferring oil back and forth from
right. Well, see, what they're doing is they're going through Turkey to do it.
Yeah.
Because they said oil from 3 Turkish refineries has generated an estimated revenues for the Kremlin. So we're, folks, instead of getting the gas here, that, you know, I thought maybe Saudi, we went back to Saudi, but no, we're actually just grabbing whichever country would be feasible enough. And of course, if we do it through Turkey, Turkey's okay, because it's not, we don't know nothing about Russia. But now we see that we're getting
oil from Saudi Arabia. Now you have to go around through Africa because insurance will not pay for those bulk carriers to transit the Red Sea because of the Houthis. So it's actually cheaper to buy oil from Venezuela and have it refined in Turkey than it is from Saudi Arabia, which is half a state away. because they have to go through the Red Sea. They'd have to go all the way around Africa, in through the Mediterranean, through the Dardanelles, and into the refineries. So, yeah, we're going to get it from Russia. If Saudi Arabia can't get their oil out cheaply, they're going to go to the vendor with the lowest price.
Yeah. Instead of, and we've closed some here, even more here, and they're just trying to squeeze the oil. I call them oil tycoons, because they make a lot of millions and millions, but we need the oil, and we had it down and to a reasonable price to where we were paying less than $2 a gallon. But see, now we dare want to shut down the oil and go pure electric. But, we still need the oil, the gas, or the oil or the coal, or another type of resource for their electrical
generation.
Yeah, we're still going to need something. And that was even brought up in Congress. And some of the people with the economic forums that were getting up there, and some in other departments, they were basically saying, well, we could give Americans 10 years, and as smart as the young folk are, they're going to come up with something. Well, I don't know if we should wait 10 years and hope we're going to come up with something. That's just no plan. There's just no plan there.
Well, they'll try to put out the sun because it's warming the earth.
How about the garbage in the ocean that's warming up the ocean? So
I'm just joking.
All right, so Japan's complaining, William. You know why they're complaining? Because Chinese aircraft carrier and a fleet. It was a aircraft carrier, and it was accompanied by 2 destroyers, sailed in between Japan's southern Yonaguni and Iromote Islands.
So China
it was
Japan
not even.
Southern.
It was like 20 miles away from the coastline where Japan has control, and they defined by United Nations. So they're bumping. We've talked about bumping ships. I'm thinking they're bumping islands now. They said
just like China wants to have control over Philippine waters. Japan and China have always had, since World War II, a squabble over the very most southern Japanese couple of islands. What China's saying right now is, well, you may have control over them, but we're going to run our carrier task group through there, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and last month they were went to United Nations over the fact that China was sending airplanes and flying low over Japan. Now they're getting super close to the islands. And it's like we said earlier, William, it's only going to increase. First it was the flyovers, and that they got lower and lower and lower to where, you could almost throw rocks at the planes. And then it was, we're going to go in and we're going to block the waters between Taiwan and the Philippines and China. They're going to take over those, and they were blocking it. Well, then they started bumping boats or bumping ships. And it doesn't matter who. They'll get close. And not only that, but then they go out with fishing vessels and have a Chinese spy ship in the middle of it that they just kind of wander away, and then they got them as close as they can to some of the aircraft carriers, whether it's ours or the UK or Australia.
Plus, they're raping like the Philippine fish stocks, right, at the same time, so they're getting a twofer out of that. So they do both with those trawlers. That's what we call them, as trawlers. Russia used to use them back in the day. They hang off from
Mm-hmm. Didn't me and you discuss this one? We weren't sure if we believed it. Ukrainian drone strike on Russia causes earthquake the size of 2.8 magnitude. So I was telling everybody earlier show that I went and had to look over there towards Ukraine to see if there was earthquakes for the last few days, and I didn't see nothing. I'm not sure if I really believe that unless they are getting bigger missiles to put on these drones, that it would cause an earthquake. It could have just been, um, it just
I think
happened.
what happened was,
I think it
Russia
just
had
earthquake
decided,
happened and they struck at the same time.
yeah,
But I didn't see no earthquake there. That was the whole thing. I mean, I went down to ones, um, and then when I got to ones, I started seeing all the earthquakes across the United States, especially around Alaska and Southern California. But there was just nothing there. And they said it was picked up by satellite, though. But if there was an earthquake, the U.S. Earthquake Center would have tracked it and they would have picked it up. So I'm not even sure if that's a true story. I don't know. Um, all right, now this last one. Now everybody heard about um, Sean Diddy. He's in a lot of trouble, folks. Now this isn't. They are now starting to look into other rappers because they are starting to see a this being repeated from different people in the music industry, the movie industry, very wealthy individuals to where there are sex traffic. And now they're even getting him on international. He was abusing his girlfriends. There's also a video that was put out of him. I mean, he beat her up bad. I seen it a long time ago. Um, and not only that, but there could be some connection to some and I can't mention names because I don't have enough info on it. It's just rumor. But there's been quite a few millionaires that have been arrested for sex trafficking that could have been used. Diddy is a kind of like a pimp, big pimp, organizational pimp. Is that what it's called, William? I don't know. What do you call it? What was Epstein? Was he an international pimp? I don't know.
he's just a sex trafficker. I mean, that's what it
Yeah,
boils down to.
and there
International sex
he
trafficker.
this Diddy was I listened to the
Human trafficking.
yeah I listened to the sheriff and the DA as they were saying the charges, and it's assault, it's battery, it's sex trafficking, international sex trafficking, maybe even children, because he didn't know somewhere under the age of 18. He's in trouble. He's in a lot of trouble. And a lot of guns. And a lot of guns with no serial numbers. They had been scratched off. So he's a thug.
So he's the bottom of the food chain. They don't go after anybody at the top of the food chain. They go out first. They go after the guy at the bottom of the food chain. The chance of him surviving to go to court is about as much as Epstein surviving.
Yeah. See that, I think this is going to be as big as, because he had houses all over the United States and around the world. So this is going to be, I don't know, this could be the rapper explosion of sex trafficking. And who else is involved? It's only if he talks, but some of these ladies that are coming forward that are ex-girlfriends or those that have been tortured by him, I think they're going to talk, and I think they're going to expose some people. But I think there's going to be a lot of assassinations before it's over.
The ones that come forward have a past. They have a birth certificate. They have a family. Maybe they're involved in movies. Maybe they're involved in recording.
Yeah.
These people can come forward. It's the kids that don't have a birth certificate, that don't have a legal past, they disappear. Nobody ever sees them again. They're not going to be coming forward.
Yeah.
There's nothing to come forward.
No, there's nothing.
With,
well,
right?
and that, and they're finding, um, oh my goodness, they found, I think it was in Nevada. I don't want to say Nevada. I don't want to say the state and be wrong. They found a mass grave of a lot of prostitutes, of like 30, 40 of them. And they knew they were prostitutes because, when the family members identified them, or they identified the bodies and notified the families, they were all come back as prostitutes. So there was a massive amount of prostitutes killed. And this was, it was when I was sick. I think it was like May or June. It was before my surgery. And I was like, wow, now we're finding, I thought it'd be kids, and families in Mexico that they were finding graves for. But this is in the middle of the United States, and it was all prostitutes. So I guess they were going to leave, or they were going to talk. And it was all races. It wasn't just one certain race of prostitute. It was just a little bit of everything. Or a really bad serial killer.
Ellie, P. Diddy's security helped make a lot of this go away as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't handle this all on his own. So his help staff, if you will, would, maybe take one of his girlfriends and maybe go to a hotel room for a couple weeks for her to heal up before she's seen out in public, stuff like that.
And even those that wanted to step in, they were offering him thousands of dollars to keep their mouth shut.
That's right.
Same thing. They either pay the girls really well, and then they heal them up, and then they slap them and put them back together again, and they send them right out.
I heard the dumbest thing I've ever heard today, saying that if somebody signed an NDA, that they wouldn't be able to speak in court. NDAs are civil, okay? Once there are legal charges filed, NDAs go out the window. The court trumps all else. So you'll probably hear that they have NDAs, so they can't speak up in court. That's not true.
Right. And now you were telling me that we basically, you said we almost all died on Sunday.
Yeah, it was Sunday or Monday. The United States and Great Britain came to the brink. They were going to go to war with Russia, using allowing the Ukrainians to use long-range missile Storm Shadows and Atacams from the United States, Storm Shadows from Great Britain. Now, Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, the week before had been in Washington getting the green light from Biden. Then last week, Keir Starmer and Blinken went to Ukraine, and just before they were to leave, they were going to give the okay to Zelensky, but the Pentagon had a major conniption fit. And that was the reason they did, because they recognized that might be just a red line way too far for the Russians.
Yeah.
And so Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, went to see Biden, and Biden angrily, by the way, called off the use of those weapons. So we came to the brink. And if Lloyd Austin had not, and the Pentagon hadn't let Austin know what was going on in Russia right then, yeah. Don't like the guy, saved our lives.
And, the thing was, Zelensky was throwing a fit about this, because at one point, I think I reported on it on Monday, that they were going to back away from it. And then Zelensky was like, no. And he had communications with both someone in the Biden administration, someone with the UK, saying that they had to, or he was going to lose
Right.
this war.
Here's Starmer, Anthony Blinken, and Jake Sutherland
That's probably
that
who.
were sidelined by Lloyd Austin and the president reluctantly.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but you were talking about.
So Blinken and Sutherland have been sidelined. They're no longer going to be involved in diplomacy in Ukraine or Israel. That will now be handled by our constituent commanders in the AOR's area. It's all diplomacy between those two nations are now going to be done by Department of Defense through the Pentagon. So Sutherland and Blinken and this Prime Minister in England, I guess to a degree, we don't have control over the Prime Minister in England, but the President certainly does over Jacob Sutherland and Anthony Blinken, and they've been set aside. They can still do their diplomacy around the world, and Blinken is going into Egypt right now trying to get a ceasefire, come up with some sort of a ceasefire deal to present to the Israelis, but he can't actually do military diplomacy with the Israelis. So what's come out is if there's a provocation on Russia or Hezbollah, an unreasonable provocation, the United States will not guarantee the security of either one of them. That's come down through, I believe, Austin.
Yeah.
So whether these pagers are that, I'm not sure what the definition of unreasonable provocation is, but yeah, it's out there.
Well, when I seen that Russia had went to Iran for this nuclear deal, and and then I started reading more into it. The thing about this is as we are trying, like you said, Jake Sullivan and Blinken are trying to get a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. Well, I don't even think Russia's listening to them, William, because they're going off and they're doing nuclear deals. They're meeting with China. They're meeting with Iran and even receiving missiles from North Korea. I think they're just humoring us.
So the JCPOA, at the beginning of this administration, we don't have direct ties with Iran, okay? They're a terrorist state. So we don't have embassy-to-embassy interactions with Iran. So Russia, on the United States' behalf, was negotiating JCPOA for the United States up until midway into the Ukrainian thing.
Yeah.
Now, what Russia's doing now may be exactly the opposite, maybe setting up a deal with them for Russia, but they may be trying to keep Iran from touching off a fuse that will affect the entire world. So we don't know whether it's pro-nuclear or anti-nuclear. We can expect that they'll share missile technology, but whether the nuclear comes into part of it or against part of it, we're not going to know for a while.
Okay, now, so what do you mean, pro-nuclear, anti-nuclear? What's?
So under the JCPOA, Russia was lobbying Iran to cease enrichment of its nuclear fuel for its weapons-grade fuels, all right? This was at the beginning of the administration. Keep in mind, the administration still wants a deal, all right? So they were working that for and on behalf of the United States because Russia has a much closer do you call it, where people are nearly friends. Anyway, a much closer
Communications.
ties with
relationships.
Than relationships with Iran than does, say, the Swiss, right? So it was a better negotiating place, at least for the Biden administration, all right? I don't know what was going on during the Trump administration. I believe Trump called off JCPOA, said it was a bad deal and just cut off all markets to Iran. So,
well, he was doing it he did it to a lot of countries, though, to where he was just cutting off, saying we're not going to be a part of that. He was stepping away from NATO and the UN.
Well, he was demanding NATO pay their share, or we would step away. He was pressuring them to do their part. But now Russia is probably making a deal right now for long-range missiles, because apparently Iran has a bunch of them, so many of them that they're sending them down to the Houthis and Hezbollah, right?
Yeah.
And the negotiated stance is probably like this. Well, if you send them to Hezbollah and the Houthis, they're going to use them, but we can use them for a lot more benefit, you know, because we got this little Ukraine thing up on our doorstep. So there's probably some of that going on. So I'm sure the missile trade is going well in their negotiations. But as far as enrichment, I don't think we're going to know for a while. But I don't think that having a nuclear Iran is in the best benefit of Russia, because it's right on their doorstep. If something happens between Iran and some other third nuclear country, say like Pakistan, it could end Russia, right?
Yeah.
It could end us all. So Russia has a nuclear stockpile, so they're well versed in the fact that if this thing starts, chances are it's over. And they don't want to have, the Russian people suffer.
No, I don't think any country.
They have long-term understanding of this thing. They've been to the edge and almost crossed over themselves, just like the United States has. They've figured this all out internally, what you do and what you don't do with these things. Iran, they're just learning. It's better sometimes just to keep people ignorant.
Yeah, and we knew that Iran gave the Houthi those missiles, and they fired them. Instantly fired them at Israel, but then they didn't get any more, and we didn't hear anything else. And I was like, yeah, Israel probably pointed the mean finger at him and said, no, you better not do that. And back off, So
well, they sent so Iran sent a number of hypersonic missiles to the Houthis. The Houthis launched one of them, as well as some other missiles that weren't hypersonic that were knocked down. But the hypersonic missile made it from Yemen into Israel proper. And the Iron Dome didn't stop it. Nothing stopped it. Now they still have a series of them. Now remember, Iran was very upset about the Hamas commander being killed in Tehran. And keep in mind, if you're Islamic in that part of the world, if somebody comes to your home, you guarantee their safety. You guarantee their safety even against your very nearest neighbors. You will go to the mat. You will. They're willing to die over that premise. Okay.
A lot of those Arabs are willing to die. I mean, they're just strap a bomb on me and I'll go. I'll die for the cause.
So Tehran was incensed over the Hamas leader dying in Tehran. they were absolutely incensed. They were incensed to the point that we sent all those aircraft carriers into the region to tamp it down long enough for them to think about it a while, right? Because it takes a while for emotion to work its way down and logic to come back to you. And that includes governments, not just individuals. And so we don't have the big presence that we did before, but they did say that they would strike back at Israel. But they didn't say when or how. Well, that was the how. Is they used a hypersonic missile out of Yemen with the Houthis.
Yeah.
It was just payback because they have to save face in that part of the world. There's no choice. Okay.
Well, do you have anything else? I've been through all my stuff, and there's a few things.
Let's see. We went through all the stuff going on in Ukraine. Yeah, this thing with the prime ministers out of England stirring things up. We've had 3 prime ministers now mixing talks with Ukraine and Russia, like the ones that happened in Turkey. So then you had a number of others that went in there, nixed things to continue the war. So if you've had 3 prime ministers out of England on all the different parties, and they're all saying basically the same thing, cowabunga, right? That's the King of England speaking.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the people.
And you were saying that it's almost like he wants to get into the middle of this. And what is the chances of the UK giving Zelensky the go-ahead to fire the missiles in without our approval? Could that, that's something to think about.
There's a big fear that Russia runs over Ukraine, and what's next on the next door is you've got Poland, you've got Hungary, and you've got Romania. Well, the homeland to the monarchies of Europe is Romania. They're upset.
Yeah.
This is a family thing now. It's not a national thing, but it's also a family thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to be threatened that way.
And I don't think the King of England needs to
They have a lot of 3rd, 4th, 5th generation family in those areas.
Right, but the King of England doesn't need to make the decisions for Europe or Germany or Poland or some of these smaller countries around Ukraine. And it almost seems like they want to step in over us. I don't know if it's to end the war or just to continue the war and make it worse.
Well, keep in mind, they're a 3rd-rate power, okay? They're not even a 2nd-rate power. Turkey's a 2nd-rate power, but England's a 3rd-rate power. If they can get the United States to engage in war in Ukraine or in the sands of Arabia, the United States might fall to the place of a 3rd-rate power. Now, all of a sudden, England, being a 3rd-rate power, is on an equal footing. And they can come back to the colonies, the colonies, and reassert their dominance because frankly, they're still kind of pissed off about 1812.
Yeah. So,
they're still a monarchy. They're still European monarchy, and we're still thumbing our nose at monarchies for democracy. And it works great here in the United States, a little bit in Canada, and a little bit less in Mexico. But as far as the rest of the world, it really doesn't work at all. They don't like it, right? And so if the United States were out of the way, maybe the monarchy of England could be the one world ruler as the United States and
Isn't
China
isn't he
basically.
getting kind of old to be? I mean, isn't he up there with Biden's age, where he's kind of old?
So, so this never
Can
goes
we say he's
away.
senile?
All right. This never goes away. This goes all the way back to the 2nd century and the Pope. This never goes away. We are still engaging in the thought processes in the minds of the elites of Europe that we were at the very beginning of World War II. Nothing has changed. The only reason we haven't gone into a world war, like, 20 or 30 years after World War I, we're in World War II, right?
Yeah.
The only reason we didn't go to the Third World War is the United States and Russia touched off the bomb. That's it.
Yeah.
And if Russia and the United States are out of the way, well, guess what?
And China
They can go back to their old ways.
Yeah, well, or China
Don't
takes
mess
over.
around with this nasty, dirty democracy business. So, just giving you a look from aristocracy's view in Europe. And that's why, the king is so fond of World Economic Forum and whatnot.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. And, it's not caused by anything. It's just history. You never forget history. The Persians are still want a greater Persia. The Turks still want greater Ottoman Empire. The Babylonians out of Iraq want to have, the Babylonian Empire. Even Italy
Islamics
would
want
like
the
to
Islamic,
have
and Muslims
right?
want the Muslims. Yeah. And we all.
And you have in the East, China is a very, very old country, like Japan is. And at different times, they were the world government in their areas. And as far as they were concerned, that was a one world government at that time.
Well, they're even starting to bring that up again. Not China, but some of the world leaders over in Europe are now starting to say maybe we do need a world. Yeah.
China at one time owned everything within the 9-dash line. Nothing moved without China's okay at some point in history. Well, they're saying, well, history was that, right? Everybody's trying to go back to where they were, the good old days. These are the good old days. Those weren't the good old days, but you're not going to convince the aristocracy of that.
Yeah. So, okay, William, we have Friday, we got trivia, but William's going to do a show before trivia. I was going to do lifestyle news, but I think we're going to let William do a 30-minute show, either news or a certain topic. And then, of course, right after that, we'll have trivia. So I hope everyone's looking forward to it. We got, oh my goodness, a massive amount, 2,000 views on last Friday for
trivia. I'm going to do a show on international jumping jacks and marbles.
There you go. I don't know if they'll want to listen to that. So they might want to, who knows. So, okay, William, I thank you. And let everyone know that we want you to subscribe and like and hit the bell, and over there and Facebook, follow us. And I thank you very much, William, for being a co-host. And we will see William on Friday, and then we will have trivia following. So thank you very much, William.
Thank you.
Hey, that was a good show. All right. All right.